Could Justin Fields be the starter for the Atlanta Falcons or Pittsburgh Steelers going forward? Could Chicago trade the number one overall pick and build around Justin Fields, letting Atlanta take Caleb Williams, letting the Raiders take Caleb Williams, letting the Giants take Caleb Williams? Who knows? Where will Russell Wilson end up? Who will the Raiders starter be? There's a lot of questions about who will be the week one NFL starting quarterback for every team in 2024. And we're going to answer those today. We brought back special guest Matthew Berwald for the third annual prediction episode. Hope you guys enjoy. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at Lots of Thoughts Sports, on Twitter at LOT Sports Pod. Links in the descriptions to all the socials, the YouTube, the podcast, the newsletter. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button on your podcast app if you haven't already. Rate us 5 stars. I appreciate the support. Click the like button. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's get into the full episode with Matthew Berwald predicting all 32 Week 1 NFL starting quarterbacks for the 2024 season. All right, everybody. I have special guest Matthew Berwald back on the podcast. Third straight year we're doing this on Lots of Thoughts, a sports podcast, predicting all 32 Week 1 NFL starting quarterbacks. Matthew, thanks for coming on another year.
Thank you for having me. First year with the camera, too.
Right, I know. This is an upgrade. We're making upgrades year over year, slowly but surely. So if you're not familiar with what we do here on these annual episodes, essentially what we're doing is predicting what moves are going to be made and who the week one starting quarterback is for every NFL team for the following season. So for 2024, as always, there's going to be a little injury luck that goes along with it, but we're predicting a little bit of free agency, perhaps a little bit of the draft. In years past, we've done this on a podcast episode, 2 episodes previous to this, but we've actually been doing it off the podcast 1 year before that. And those 3 years, last year was by far more successful. I don't know if you're aware of this, Matthew. The first year we did it, 2021, you had 28 of the 32 correct. I had 23. So you did really well that year. 2022, we both had 24 out of 32. And then last year, I had 29, you had 27. So
yeah, and the difference in that one was who got Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. Yeah. So that we both missed on a few. That we both had the Colts incorrect. I had Jacoby Brissett. You had C.J. Stroud, which was, I mean, honestly, we were both kind of on the right track that they were going to draft the rookie and bring in a veteran. It just didn't shake out the same way, and Anthony Richardson started there. We both had Colt McCoy starting for the Cardinals. Of course, he was cut before the start of the year for Josh Dobbs to start, and then we both whiffed on Tampa Bay. I had Teddy Bridgewater. You had Jacoby Brissett. Ended up being Baker Mayfield. So, and then, like you mentioned, you had Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy G switched. But I thought a good performance from us, honestly.
Considering how difficult it was, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and one more thing before we hop into 2024, I thought you'd find this interesting. I also, each time I do this for my own purposes, I try to predict who will draft a quarterback in the first round. And last year, I had Bryce Young, Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson all going in the first round. I had Bryce Young going at 2 to the Houston Texans. So this was before Chicago traded the first overall pick to Carolina. Will Levis going at 4 to the Colts. And then, will you believe it, C.J. Stroud going at 7 to the Las Vegas Raiders. And boy, what a different situation. Yeah, that would have been last year. And then I had Anthony Richardson at 9 to the Panthers, which, I mean, I guess we'll see where Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson's career takes us. But the Raiders, by far, would have been the big winners if that was the case.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now into 2024. So Matthew and I both also categorized our quarterback picks in 4 different levels. So locked in guys, they're going to be the week 1 starter barring injury. The next level down of confidence, it seems very likely. Like there could be a potential of a change, but most likely that's where the team is going. A third category, a little less confident. We're leaning this way, but we don't really know. And then lastly, a shot in the dark. Out of curiosity, I had 21 locked in. How many did you have?
I have 22, although one of them is could go either way.
I'm interested.
We're very close on there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where we differ there. Okay. Let's start. We did this last year. We kind of went in order of how I think is the least intriguing to the most intriguing. Division by division. So let's start with what I think is the most locked in division, the NFC West.
I agree. Yeah,
I have obviously for the Arizona Cardinals, I have Kyler Murray.
same.
And I think if you asked me 1 year ago, I probably wouldn't have had Kyler Murray, but it seems they're building around him. I thought they were going to move on from him, honestly, and tank and get an early pick, but it seems they're using that early pick on a weapon and building around him, which I respect in a way.
Yeah, he's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, can he do it consistently and not get hurt?
Exactly. And can they put the pieces around him for him to succeed? I think that's kind of a
Yeah,
bigger question. Um,
especially coaching.
right, exactly. Then for the Los Angeles Rams, I have Matthew Stafford.
I do as well.
I don't think there's a lot of intrigue there necessarily. But for the San Francisco 49ers, I have Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I have him there too.
And then lastly, Seattle Seahawks, I have Geno Smith. Out of the four, probably the least secure position, you could argue, but still secure in my mind.
Yeah, he's the one that I have marked as locked in that I might have been able to put one category below.
Interesting.
Everyone else, everyone else I do think is pretty locked in for me.
Okay, so I had him as locked in, so I'm curious where we still have one that's different in that category that you think is locked in, and I don't have, right? I don't
There's
have as
another one.
locked in.
There's another one that you might have that I have that I could probably change as well.
We'll see when we get to it. I think that's interesting. Okay, no surprises there. Let's move on to the AFC South. Houston Texans. I mean, this one's one of the easiest one in the group. I have CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I do as well.
And then Indianapolis Colts. I have, barring any injury delays, I have Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I have his name there too.
I feel like he could just get hurt in preseason and wreck our our streak there. But
Well, given how the first 4 weeks of his career have gone, that's very, very possible.
yeah, they're going to have to sign a veteran backup. I don't know. I believe Gardner Minshew's a free agent, but I think they need to get someone of his quality just to make sure they have a viable quarterback because they're a decent team,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, they nearly made the playoffs this year with
Yep.
Gardner Minshew. So,
Yep.
and then for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I have Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Yep.
And then lastly, for the last team for the AFC South, for the Tennessee Titans, I had this seems very likely. I did not have it locked in, but I have Will Levis.
I currently have it marked as locked in, but
Okay, so that would be the
I could
difference.
definitely, yeah, I could definitely put it down to where you have it.
Yeah, I debated on the status of that one for a little while. I just don't know where the upgrade could be if it's Will Levis, but I feel like he hasn't really shown he's definitely the guy. Like, I feel like maybe they bring in a veteran and there's a shot that he loses the job in camp or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't really seemed to indicate one way or another whether or not they're gonna do anything else. So I'll just stick with his name, leave it there for now.
Not that it's quarterback focused, but I'm curious to hear your take on this. What do you think of their coaching change, getting rid of Mike Vrabel? Because I was one who was flabbergasted as to why they let go of Vrabel, who I consider one of the better coaches in the NFL.
I wouldn't say flabbergasted. It's more so like a politics thing behind the scenes, I believe. But actual product on the field, he deserved to keep going,
Yeah,
my opinion.
absolutely. I thought there was a good chance he would end up in New England, but it seemed like they had Gerard Mayo lined up. Anyway, that's where we'll continue. The AFC East. Three of which I think are locked in. So we'll start with those. Buffalo Bills, I obviously have Josh Allen.
You'd be very surprised if I had a different name there. So
Shocked.
yeah,
And then for the Miami Dolphins, I have Tua Tagovailoa.
yep.
For the New York Jets, I have 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
Assuming he doesn't tear his Achilles again in preseason this time.
Don't even mention it, man. Don't even mention it. Okay. And then the first intriguing one, this I have as a shot in the dark for the New England Patriots. I have LSU quarterback Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels.
I also have Jaden Daniels marked there with shot in the dark category.
I think out of all the shot in the darks I have, this is one that's probably the least exciting because I feel like they're almost definitely going to draft the quarterback. It's just a question of which one it is. There's some people out there who
Yeah.
think that they should be in the market for a veteran. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, me either. And then looking at mock drafts because I don't really evaluate talents until they actually set foot on an NFL field. It seemed like Jaden Daniels was the consensus going 3, and that's just the name I kept there. I've seen some people say that maybe the Patriots will trade up or down and then drafts the quarterback somewhere else, but I'm not going to try to predict draft day trade yet.
Yeah, I can't either. Not for this. I mean, I've done a lot more mock drafts this year than I have in years past. And you always, for sake of content, like try to find some interesting trades and wrinkles they could do. And
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward, and Jaden Daniels is going to be the pick there. Um,
yeah,
let's move on. Let's keep in the AFC. Move on to the AFC North. Similar story. Three locked ins for me. I have Lamar Jackson for the Ravens,
yeah, yeah. I've been there too.
and then Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals, assuming like Aaron Rodgers, he also doesn't get hurt in the preseason.
Yeah, let's see how his hands doing.
Right. Cleveland Browns. This is one I'll hear an argument on if you don't have it locked in. I do, but I'm not ruling anything out. I have Deshaun Watson.
In terms of on-field products, I probably wouldn't say locked in, but in terms of the contract that he was given, he is locked in. I do have Marcus locked in.
100%. And I remember we talked about this last year. Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson comparing the two of them. And I remember us agreeing that that past year we had Russell Wilson locked into Denver and we had Deshaun Watson locked into the Browns. And that next year, even if they both played poorly again, that Russell Wilson was much more likely to be out of his starting spot. And I mean, obviously, unless you have Russell Wilson for Denver, I don't think you do. We'll get there in a little while. But
Yeah,
we are certainly right, I think. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, speaking of Russell Wilson, this is where I have Russell Wilson going.
I have Kenny Pickett listed there.
Interesting. Okay. So you think they're giving him another shot?
I feel like the Steelers as a whole, as an organization, tend to be incredibly conservative. I don't know who they want to draft. I don't know if they're going to move up and trade up in draft day, and I don't really see them wanting Russell Wilson with his contract and whatever else is happening. At least in terms of like the Broncos side of it.
100%. I think Russell Wilson's an interesting case because if the Broncos cut him, their cap hit is dead cap is something like 80 million. It's like absolutely ludicrous. So if they're going to move on from
Yeah,
him, which you think they would, they'd have to find a trade. And I almost think they just have to give up
he,
assets to be able
he's
to get him
untradeable.
off the, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
so if, I mean, it's tough for me to see him back in Denver. I guess we'll get to whether you have him on any of your other spots, but that's why I had him here. But I don't hate Kenny Pickett as a choice. I feel like they're going to keep him around and at least let him compete for it either way.
yeah, yeah. I have him as leaning this way.
Leaning, okay, interesting. I had Russell Wilson a shot in the dark in case that wasn't obvious. I feel like that's pretty much a given. Okay. Into let's hop back to the NFC. I think two are locked in the NFC East. I have Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah, I also have him there.
and then I have
Jerry
Jalen. Sorry, go ahead.
uh, Jerry Jones is too loyal.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to see more out of Dak, but I know Jerry has him locked in, so he's locked in.
100%. And then for the Philadelphia Eagles, I have Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, yeah. I don't agree with David Carr. He's locked in there too.
Yeah, I think it's a ridiculous take. I mean, I thought he was better earlier in the season than I do now, but I think it's ridiculous to say he's not at the very least, top 10 quarterback, but probably more like top 7 or 8 in the NFL. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, the people just totally underestimated what losing two very competent coordinators in a team
100%.
could
And I
do.
feel like even if it's mentioned, it's not talked about enough, really, because you see, I mean, Shane Steichen took Indy from being the fourth worst team in the NFL to nearing a playoff spot, and then say what you want about Jonathan Gannon, and he's kind of a weird dude. And Arizona struggled, but he got the most out of Josh Dobbs, I think. Moved on when appropriate, and I
Mm,
think they have a brighter
yep.
future today than they did at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I don't know. Philly's got to figure it out, but it's not Jalen
Yes,
Hurts'
they
problem.
do.
Okay, and then one that I had seems very likely. I think you might have locked in for the New York Giants. I have Daniel Jones.
Nope, I have seemed very likely.
Okay, there we go. I think they're an interesting story. I think a lot of Giants fans want them to draft the quarterback at 6, but I
They
just
should.
feel, yeah, I agree. But I just feel like they're going to go for the best offensive weapon available and call it there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the Giants are doing really. I feel like they're just going to stick with him because they've already sunken cost fallacy their way into it 1 year ago. So just keep going with it, I guess.
And it's funny, I listen to a lot of New York sports radio and obviously being a Jets fan, but I hear a lot of
Yeah.
Giants conversation, and a lot of Giants fans really, really believe in Joe Shane and the leadership in the Giants organization. And I'm not going to say I
Okay.
necessarily don't believe in him, but I feel like, I don't know, I don't feel that strongly that he's the right guy and that paying Daniel Jones, even if they have an opt out after this year, is, I mean, they're still paying him 40 million to be the 25th best quarterback in the NFL. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
mean,
last, oh, sorry, go ahead.
the Giants record is going to speak for itself. That's all I'm going to say over the last X number of years.
Right. And I think they fell in love with that, that one playoff win against Minnesota when Minnesota was just fraudulently winning that division. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
11 and through 10 and 1, 11 and 0 in one score games or something like that. Insane.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And then the last team, I have it leaning this way. I have the Washington Commanders starting Drake May.
I also have Drake May's name there. I wasn't sure which one to categorize it just yet. I think I'll go with leaning this way. I also had shot in the dark kind of written down just in case, but I'll go with leaning this way.
I think it's kind of interesting with them having Sam Howell, former teammate at North Carolina, of Drake May. I think that's an interesting layer to it. But it's also for the fact, I mean, we assume Caleb Williams is going first overall, whether it's Chicago or Chicago trades out of that pick. There's a lot of
Yeah.
analysts who think Drake May is like this, like 1B to Caleb Williams, and that's there's teams out there that should take Drake May over Caleb Williams. So I don't think Washington hates the position they're in, all things considered.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the obvious choice for them, honestly, considering the needs and where they need to go.
Right. Okay. Let's keep in the NFC. Let's do the NFC North. I have two locked in here. I have the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff,
Yep.
and then the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. And then the two question marks, which I think are interesting. I have both of them leaning this way. So Chicago, I have taken Caleb Williams, obviously moving on from Justin Fields.
I also have Caleb Williams listed there. I put seems very likely, but I could go down in ranking to where you're at as well.
I think just the question is whether they, I mean, I think it's between those two guys. So I don't think there's anyone else that could start for them week one. It's Caleb Williams or it's Justin Fields. Just what path they go, not what quarterback they take,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yep.
And then lastly, Minnesota, which I feel like this is just kind of a bold take in saying that it's only leaning this way, but I have Kirk Cousins returning somewhat hesitantly.
Yeah. I have seems very likely for Kirk Cousins as well. I feel like there's just a lot of noise about him not being there, and I don't really see him leaving yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally,
I don't know. I feel like plus with Justin Jefferson and clearly his relationship with Kirk Cousins and his
yeah,
clear desire to have a quarterback that's competent in Minnesota, if they don't keep Kirk Cousins, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, could they draft the guy? What do they have? 11th pick, I think, in the draft. Sure, but I don't think that keeps the boat afloat.
yeah, and it's not going to make a lot of your players happy, like Justin Jefferson.
Exactly. Okay, and then let's wrap up the NFC. Carolina Panthers, I have a locked in Bryce Young.
I do as well.
And then the New Orleans Saints, I have locked in with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I have his name there too. Did you have him there last year?
I did, yes, we
'Cause I
both
know
did.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes, that was one that I was very hesitant about.
I was confident.
I was thinking if it wasn't Aaron Rodgers for the Jets, they were going to go Derek Carr, and then it just seemed like they never gave Derek Carr a sniff. So I don't know.
I had enough experience with Derek Carr being on the Raiders all those years. I had a feeling he was just going to go there. Seemed like he liked it and whatnot.
Yeah, Dennis Allen and the familiarity there, for sure.
Yeah, even though it didn't really work out, and I don't really see it going anywhere.
No, I don't
Anywho,
either. But okay, and then for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have seems very likely that it'll be Baker Mayfield.
yeah, same for me.
And then lastly, for the Atlanta Falcons, I have a leaning this way, which might be a little more confident than I should be, but I have Justin Fields returning home to Atlanta.
I also have Justin Fields, and I have it marked as shot in the dark. Maybe
I
I could
could,
go up one, but
I would, I would probably, if I had to rethink this, change to shot in the dark. Although his odds dramatically increased today. I had him a couple days ago when I did this list. But apparently there's a lot of momentum in Vegas to him going to Atlanta. I don't know. I think sometimes those kind of sniffs are to tip off the public and send everyone betting one way, and then they end up going another way. But it makes sense for Atlanta because I don't think they can get the quarterback they want at pick, what is it, 8 or 9 in the draft. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
unless they trade up, which can they do it? I haven't looked into it, what kind of capital they have to do that.
Right. And I think if they did, ironically, I think it would be with Chicago, whether they're trading for Justin Fields or trading up to one. I feel like that's their most likely solution because if you're Atlanta and you're, I believe they're pick 8. If you're sitting there at 8, you probably feel good about getting the fourth best quarterback in the draft sitting there. I don't think you need to move up to 5 or whatever it is. So if you want to move
Yeah,
up to get a quarterback, I doubt New England's trading out. I doubt Washington's trading out. I feel like Chicago's the only way to go.
yeah, and that's going to be a nice premium. So we'll see.
Could you imagine Chicago just trading out of 2 number 1 overall picks and just racking up the draft capital? I know you don't
I
watch
mean,
I know you don't watch NBA, but it'd be very similar to what the Thunder have done. They have something like 27 first and second round picks in the next 10 years. It's crazy. I mean, it's
wow,
5 years, sorry, 5 years. It's
that's
insane.
still insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um yeah. Uh
Just depends on how happy they are with Justin Fields.
right. 100%. And how frankly how happy he's with them because I feel like that may be a souring relationship, but who knows?
Yeah.
And then the last division, which I think is the most contentious, despite having the most locked in guy on this list. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, I have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. And then the Chargers, I have Justin Herbert, who a lot of people think is gonna have a big year under Jim Harbaugh. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that.
I feel like they should have made a coaching change last year. So last year was definitely a lost year in my mind. As long as Harbaugh hasn't totally lost, it should be exciting to see what goes on there. I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Staley might have been the worst NFL coach we've seen in a long time. So I feel like anything is an upgrade. And if Jim Harbaugh can be a good coach to very good coach, then I mean that's a huge upgrade, right? I just don't know if he
Yes.
could
Yeah.
be elite like he was in college, and I think he was with San Francisco until he kind of soured some relationships there. But
Yeah. I think that was another case of politics, just like the Titans
100%,
with Vrabel. Yeah.
100% agree. Okay, and then I think the two of the ones that I had the most trouble with, the Denver Broncos. I have them drafting JJ McCarthy out of Michigan and starting in week 1.
I still have Russell Wilson's name written down.
Ooh.
I do not see them get rid of him. I feel like he's untradeable. There's just way too much money to be put into him. Like, what are you gonna do? What is there to do other than leave him on the roster and start him again? Have the rookie learn behind him, if anything,
You know,
whatever he could learn.
I could hear it. I mean, it's not unreasonable by any means. That relationship is so strained clearly between Russell Wilson and Sean
Yes.
Payton,
Yep.
and frankly with the Broncos ownership and general management from the previous year, I feel like they soured on him when Nathaniel Hackett was there already. And they brought in Peyton to try to fix him, and then it just went worse, I think, than anyone really expected. Although he didn't play all that bad, but
I
still,
saw a little bit of improvement from the year prior, but not enough, honestly.
right. I
And it
mean,
was too sporadic.
100%. I mean, when you're going from, as a Jets fan, when you're going from Nathaniel Hackett to pretty much anybody as your offensive play caller, you have to see a little bit of improvement. And Sean Payton, I think, is a very good head coach still. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't hate the take by any means. And then the last one, Las Vegas Raiders. I have, and this was a tough one for me to do, really, but I have them drafting Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington and starting in week 1.
I went safe with the last two teams that we've discussed here. I still have Aiden O'Connell's name down.
Interesting. Is this a scenario where you think they roll with Aiden O'Connell as, a guy that they bring in with a veteran to compete, or do you think it's a situation which I kind of feel like where they're going to draft the quarterback and start Aiden O'Connell to start the year?
The latter, definitely. I heard Pierce in an interview say that they're going to keep Aiden, they're going to give him the opportunity to fight for the starting job, and there's a lot of rumors that they might draft someone. So that's the route that I'm going to go.
Yeah, 100%. I think I completely agree that he'll be on the roster and that they're going to give him a chance to fight. I think with Michael Penix Jr., he's ultra accurate, and I feel like He's like a really tough guy. He's played through injury in the playoff. I just feel like he's an Antonio Pierce guy, and if he's rolling in camp, I feel like they're just gonna write him out. And if he plays well, he's never gonna give the reins up. You know what I mean? I feel like Antonio Pierce is such
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
ride the popular hot hand and don't upset the apple cart kind of guy. Not in a bad way, but making sure the team has the back of everyone that's being chosen to start. So I feel
Yes.
like that's where I could
Yeah.
see it happening.
Yeah.
All right. So we had a few differences here. So to recap, most of which was the same. We had differences in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had Russell Wilson. You had Kenny Pickett. We had a difference in, scrolling down my list, the Denver Broncos. I had JJ McCarthy. You had Russell Wilson. And then the Las Vegas Raiders. I had Michael Penix. You had Aiden O'Connell. Was that it? I believe those were the only three differences we had.
I feel like we
Looks
usually
like
have more.
I I
Or am I
I
wrong on that too?
I do feel like that. I was looking back on our list. Like I feel like any team that had a veteran that they were going to bring in, we generally disagreed on who the veteran was. But I was looking back at previous lists. I mean, I was taking some dumb shots in the dark. Like I had Tom Brady for the 49ers at one point. I had Matt
I mean,
Ryan
that
for the
wasn't too
49ers
bad of a shot. Yeah.
previously. To be fair. Matt Ryan was worse though, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's I would agree. I think we have more differences usually, but I feel pretty good about where we're at.
Yeah. I've always tended to be very safe with these kind of lists. Keep it simple.
And I tend to do the opposite, which gets me in trouble in some years and why I put up 23 out of 32. The first year we did
It's
this.
definitely entertaining though.
Yeah, of course. So for what it's worth, I wrote this down. I mean, I mentioned Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. being five rookies that are starting, which is kind of insane. Picked in the top 13. But Bo Nix, who's the quarterback out of Oregon, who is likely to go in the top 2 rounds, I have going to Pittsburgh, which now that I reread this, I'm like kind of terrified of the idea of them starting Russell Wilson, but also bringing another quarterback, but also keeping Kenny Pickett. So I feel like I'd have to switch that in some capacity.
I mean,
Um,
we're still filming. You could change it and then submit that as your official answer if you want.
I'm
Up
gonna
to you.
keep it. I'm gonna keep it. This is not for any points. I just do this for my own curiosity to see, when I log on next year and see that CJ Stroud should have been a Raider. We'll see if Bo Nix is the star of the Denver Broncos and should have been a Pittsburgh Steeler. I don't know. We'll see. This has been fun. Not a lot of differences, but this has been a fun conversation. I appreciate you coming on, Matthew. Thanks for giving the time today.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for watching. We're going to just close out the podcast episode here. No formal outro. Subscribe to all the socials, links in the description. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Appreciate the support. Peace out.